Oh, I didn't tell you, Ashton, that Sam is a Bama fan.
Welcome, one and all, to our fifth installment of the SEC Tavern Talk. And I have just gotten some tragic news from our co host, JB, that our guest today is an Alabama fan. Let's let him introduce himself and explain himself.
Yeah, my name is Samuel Wallace. Everybody calls me Sam except for my parents. And I'm JB's Sunday school teacher, by the way. Yeah. I'm also I'm a head basketball coach in Alabama. I live near Huntsville. I would tell you where I'm from, you wouldn't know. But near Huntsville, and I'm a varsity girls basketball coach. I've coached boys up until this year. I've recently changed schools, so we're gonna do some basketball stuff at the end. I can bring a little bit of expertise, I guess.
All right.
Whatever.
Sounds good. Samuel, it's good to have you with us, even if you are an Alabama fan and cheering for the wrong team. You know what? We're a Christian group. We love you anyway. So, with that, let's have a recap, a rundown of last week's games. Let's start with you, JB. What did you see from Arkansas? What went down last week? Did Arkansas even play?
Barely. They were on the field, and I think about when we were even ahead during the game, I think on the game thread I was like, we're playing like trash on all sides of the ball. I don't know why we're winning, and then all of a sudden we end up losing because we really were. But anyway, we basically laid an egg against a team that just got their running back. If we had played them a week earlier, we would have won handily. The problem was, our quarterback threw 2 interceptions and they scored touchdowns on those interceptions, and we ended up losing by 2 scores. Obviously, that plays a role. And Dre Greenlaw, who is basically the heart and soul of our defense, gets knocked out, midway through the game, and his backup is honestly a more talented player. It's probably going to be better, but he's a true freshman, and he's not the leader that Greenlaw is, and the defense completely shut down in the second half. It was so bad. I'm not even here to do much of a recap. I'm just kind of giving you like my thoughts on what happened. So yeah, we lost 45-31 to Vandy. We scored the same amount against Vandy that we did against Alabama, which is kind of strange. Like the best team and the worst. But anyway, so yeah, it was just a poor execution from the quarterback perspective and from the defense at the end, because we lacked leadership. Our run game still looked good. That's all I can really say. I'm glad we have this off week to kind of look at things from a different perspective, and I still am hopeful for the future, but this year is just kind of a throwaway, so it is what it is.
Right. Well, with that horribly sad recap, James, will you take us through Texas A&M's game from last week?
I honestly was so mad and so upset about it that I have not pulled up the box score until just now, and I still am struggling to push through this right now. But I guess I'll go ahead and start off with the defense. Statistically, they were pretty similar. You wouldn't see too much difference just looking at the stats. They had 6 more tackles total. We had the same number of sacks and tackles for loss at 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. But then you look in our quarterback hurries column, and we've got 1, they've got 11. So that kind of tells you what you need to know with that one stat. Kellen Mond went 50% on his completion percentage, 23 for 46, 232 yards, only 1 touchdown, and had 1 interception. It was pretty sad. Our receivers did not perform well. We had a lot of drop balls. It was just frustrating and infuriating to watch, and I had a bad feeling from the second that I saw that we were getting the ball to start the game. I always get a bad feeling when we get the ball to start, and after that first 3 and out, I knew it was all downhill from there. So I don't have much more to say about that other than I don't think Kellen Mond has quick enough decision making, and I think the drop balls cascaded into more drop balls by our receivers, just crushed our confidence, even though we went into the half up by 3. It was just a rough game, rough to watch, and even now looking back at it, I'm still having a rough time recapping it. But that's pretty much all I've got. Our special teams was kind of flat. Our defense just really broke wide apart. I was expecting that they were going to give Mr. Fitzgerald a little bit of trouble running the ball, and I was really wrong. And then because our secondary is soft, he could actually throw the ball, and that opened up more running lanes, and it was just bad all around. Definitely blew away my expectations in a bad way.
Well, that's good to hear. Rob, how did Georgia do last week?
The outdoor cocktail party, as usual, did not disappoint. It was a great game this year. Score was a little bit wider spread than the actual game was. I think Georgia kind of pulled away towards the end. Florida kind of hung up and made some mistakes late, but it was a really great game. Georgia forced some key turnovers and really hung in there. They let him throw downfield finally, and he was slinging some good passes, man. He was on target. When he wanted to make plays, he made them. And so I think it was a really good week bouncing back from the LSU loss. I know a lot of people were kind of jumping off of our train, so to speak. And I think we kind of proved to the country as well as to ourselves that we're not out of this yet. So,
right. Yeah. Well, I'll say I think that people got on to Fromm for basically being human. They wanted him to not start anymore because he had a bad game against the best defense that he had faced all year at Tiger Stadium. And then he came back and he shut the haters up, and I think did an extremely good job against Florida. And I was impressed by that game. Samuel, Alabama didn't play last week, but what have you seen this year from Alabama's football?
I think this team is different, in my opinion, than any of the teams that he's built. When I say he, I mean Saban. This team reminds me more of Saban's mentor.
Yes, this is a Christian group. We are quite familiar with Saban.
Yeah, you should be. He won a national championship for your school.
Yep, and then betrayed us.
So, well, he went where the money was. But I think they're built more like the Patriots are. Their defensive is not built to shut you down, so to speak. They're not going to shut anybody out. They're just going. They're a big play defense. They're going, strip sack, fumbles, pick sixes. They're still going to get their knots. Still going to get non-offensive touchdowns. But they're more, predicated on the big play this year. Based upon what we've seen, and with Tua at the level he's playing, I'm not sure if any quarterback has played at the level that he's played at. Now, have they played good defenses? No, they have not. But they have done. People can say that the schedule's been weak, and they're right. The schedule is weak, but they've done exactly what they're supposed to do, and that's annihilate people. And to me, Alabama is more like Mike Tyson was early in his career. They jump on you and they pummel you in the first round, and it's over.
Yep.
And you've got to be able to weather that storm. And can somebody weather the storm? I guess we'll see in Tiger Stadium on Saturday night.
That's right. Well, I will give it to Alabama. Despite the weak schedule, it is true that they have done what they were supposed to do. They didn't come out and lay an egg against any of the defenses that they played. They came out and they've put up points on everybody that they were supposed to put up points on. And just a rundown of last week, Georgia shocked the world and blows out Florida. It's 36-17. Well, I say blows out, but it's not a blowout, but it's a convincing win. Kentucky goes to Missouri and has one of the most amazing victories that I've ever had the pleasure of viewing. On an untimed down at the end of the game, Kentucky throws a touchdown pass to keep their SEC East hopes alive. Texas A&M goes to Mississippi State and falls to the Cowbells, 28-13. Vanderbilt goes into Fayetteville and embarrasses the Razorbacks, 45-31. And South Carolina pulls out a tight one at Tennessee. Kind of disappointing for South Carolina and Tennessee, neither of whom are very good football teams. But with that, we're going to move on into our questions segment. So everybody get out your questions, and we will go through these one by one by grueling one, and hopefully give something of a satisfying answer to each of them. The first question, with the first playoff rankings out, is there a chance an undefeated Notre Dame gets left out? He says, when Alabama wins Saturday, will that ensure that the SEC gets only one team in? So there's two questions, and then he throws in a third. Also, which will happen first, more conference realignment or expanding the playoff to more teams? So first, and this is Wes Mewborn, I think is how you say that. And first, I will say, no, an undefeated Notre Dame does not get left out of the playoff. I don't see any teams coming from behind and knocking out an undefeated Notre Dame, but a one-loss Notre Dame doesn't get in. I think if Alabama wins, and that's a big if Alabama wins Saturday, yes, the SEC only gets one team in. If the SEC is to get two teams in to the college football playoff this year, Alabama has to lose Saturday. That's the only way I can see it happening. A one-loss non-conference champion Alabama gets in along with a one-loss conference champion. But if Alabama goes to the SEC championship, one team gets in and that's it. And also, which will happen first, more conference realignment or expanding the playoff to more teams? JB, what do you think about these questions so far?
Conference realignment is more realistic because we've seen it happen over and over again, and more teams want to get some of that money from the bigger conferences. I could see definitely the Big 12 is going to expand. Like they can't sit there with 10 teams and call themselves the Big 12. So I feel like that is probably going to happen before we see a playoff expansion. Although most of us really want to see a playoff expansion more than the conference realignment. But I think Briggins has the right idea of actually just splitting off the Power Five from the Group of Five. And I'm going to piggyback that with what DJ said, probably in 5PL, that that would be good once all the conferences get 16 teams. Then all five conferences just break off. So I could see that happening conceivably before I could see the expansion happening, because they like having their committee to pick the four best teams, whether they're conference champions or not. Best, yeah.
James, what do you think?
Honestly, I was thinking about this a lot today, and I think with some sort of freak accident, we could actually end up with 3 SEC teams in the playoff, the Final Four.
Let me stop you real quick. You can't. There's a rule. Only 2 from one conference.
Okay, then that crushes my freak dream.
I want to hear I want to hear this because I don't see a 2-loss SEC.
I want to hear that scenario.
All right, so my scenario is if LSU wins this week and Alabama still ends up going to the the SEC playoff and then beats Georgia, I still think Georgia could make it in.
Interesting.
With 2 losses.
A 2-loss non-conference champion does not get in, and that also assumes that LSU doesn't win the West. Because if LSU beats Alabama, then LSU is in the driver's seat in the West, and you're assuming that LSU would lose to, I'm assuming, Texas A&M, and then that. That's I don't see two different 2-loss SEC teams getting in.
No, I'm gonna get real, and I don't foresee, after our play last week, I don't foresee a win against LSU. I mean, I'm still picking my boys every week, but I don't foresee a happy outcome.
It's okay, I don't either.
All right, I'm going to be honest and say that I don't see Arkansas beating LSU either, but
you might as well pick them.
I've seen it before. I've seen a bad Arkansas team beat a stellar LSU team. Mm-hmm. It just happens. It's a rivalry game.
Right, and that's going both ways.
Yeah. Les Miles is not there anymore.
Amen. All right. Well, Rob, what do you think about these questions?
Well, I think there's to the Notre Dame question, I think there is a chance that if they go undefeated, they won't again, but I don't think it's likely. I think that a lot would have to perfectly align for them to not, just because at this point there's a lot of teams that have already lost. There's very few undefeateds right now. So, and I think a lot's going to shake up with the Big Ten. I don't think Michigan's going to stay undefeated. I hope Michigan beats Ohio State and Penn State beats Michigan. That way they all get –
knock them all out.
Yeah. But we'll see if that happens. But I think to what I was saying, sorry to cut you off, James, but I just remember them making that 2-conference rule. I'm sure they made that because they knew otherwise that – because, going back to when LSU and Alabama played the national championship, every non-SEC fan, a.k.a. SEC haters, because everyone that isn't an SEC fan, they hate us because they ain't us. But
that's right.
True.
But they all think that was the biggest joke, that it shouldn't have been Alabama and LSU there. And I think after that, when they started making the playoff system, they made that rule to kind of so that there wouldn't be any risk of them being, I don't want to use the term bias, but I will, towards the SEC, because they got to be fair and all that. They can't get the best teams. they got to be fair. No. So
I don't see a scenario where 3 teams from one conference can get in. I'm trying to rack my brain for one, and I can't come up with any.
Well, I agree. I think especially because what they do with the committee is similar to basketball. They don't the whole committee doesn't change, but they change half the committee each year, and so it's different minds thinking through it. So each year you got to figure out, you don't have any idea what those 6 or 7 new committee members are going to vote, how they're going to change the spectrum. So how it was this year, whether they're looking solely at resume or whether, whatever, it could be completely different this year.
You're right.
So it's hard to really judge how they're going to do everything. That's why I'm not really sure that this or that will happen. Now, do I think 3 SEC teams will make it? Well, first of all, it's a rule, but I don't think they could anyway because there's too many other teams that have shown that, they built a resume.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
No, I was going to say the only way I could actually see it, if it wasn't a rule, the only way I could actually see it happening is say Alabama runs the table in the West and then goes to the SEC championship and loses to an undefeated Georgia. And also LSU only has 1 loss against Alabama. Well, then you have 2 1-loss non-conference champions and 1 undefeated conference champion.
Right.
And you're comparing them to, let's say, the Big 12 has a 2-loss conference champion and the Pac-12 has a 2-loss conference champion. Everybody, beats up on each other. I could see it happening.
It would have to be like a 2007 season, like just
have to be
crazy
just
things
crazy.
falling
Well,
in just the
yeah.
right way.
I will say, go ahead.
Well, and another thing I was going to say is this is another like cry for the playoff expansion, because I think here's the issue is that you want to find the best teams, and you can make the argument about, it delegitimizes the regular season and all that crap. But here's the thing: when you play in a legit conference like the SEC, and I'll even give props to, just for argument's sake, to some of the other Power 5 conferences, the Big 10, Big 12, whatever. The Pac-12 sucks, but while we're going
Testify.
even the ACC, some years I'll give them credit. But with that said, if one conference is dominating, if they legitimately have the best teams, but they have to play each other and knock each other out, then you're not getting the best teams in there. Mm-hmm. So by extending the playoff, and I mean, we could debate for how big, but I mean,
32 teams.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. Regardless of the specific number, I think expanding it to at least 8 really kind of narrows that down and eliminates that issue.
Right. Well, I think you're right there. Sam, you want to take a crack at these questions that we've asked?
Yeah. I think Notre Dame is in, period. They can win in overtime in every game. If they win out, they are in, period. I don't think it's even a question. I do see a scenario where if Alabama does beat LSU, I'm going to say if, because, Tiger Stadium's where dreams go to die, apparently. If Alabama beats LSU and is dominant in every game, and then they go to the SEC championship and Georgia beats them in like an overtime game, I can definitely see them putting them both in again. But Alabama has to be dominant in every game, and it's got to be no question. In 2007, when Bama and LSU, they had no options.
Right.
It was like Armageddon for football. Everybody lost, and it was like a perfect storm.
Right.
And so I just think that if Alabama is dominant in every game, and then Georgia beats them in a very, very, very highly contested game, overtime, 1 or 2 points, even one possession, and Alabama passes the quote unquote eye test, that's the vernacular they keep throwing around, is eye test. I think there's a situation that it could happen. Now things would have to occur. Probably Notre Dame's probably going to lose to get 2 of them in, but there is a scenario out there, I think. Which is more likely, expansion or realignment? Really, realignment's probably more likely. I can see them going to an 8-team playoff, but the rest of the country better be careful what they wish for on that one, because they talked about, we don't want 2 SEC teams in the finals, and what did we have last year in the playoff? 2 SEC teams. If you go to an 8-team playoff, and let's just say they go, you get the 5 Power 5s are automatically in if you win your conference, and then you do the one group of 5 is automatically in, and then 2 wild cards, you're almost ensuring every year there's going to be 2 SECs.
At least.
You're right. And so the only way they could figure it out, they're going to have to put them on the same side of the bracket, or you could end up with 2 SECs every single season. So the rest of the country better be careful what they wish for when they talk about expansion. Just like in basketball, a lot of times you end up with, in the Final Four, you end up with 2 teams that are in the same conference. A couple of years ago, Louisville, and I think was it North Carolina that played in the finals?
I think so.
It happens. It happens. But the rest of the country, in my opinion, better be careful what they wish for by going to expansion, because you're pretty much ensuring at least 2 SEC teams getting into the Final Four just about every year, even if they just go to 8 teams, in my opinion.
Right. Well, I basically agree. What you got, JB?
Oh, just real quick, man. I got to say something about that, because they tried that in baseball this last year. They put they came out with the top 8, and they conveniently put the 4 SEC teams that were in the top 8. They put them at 1, 4, 5, and 8, which means they're all on the same side of the bracket.
Tried to line them up.
they tried to line them up to where they wouldn't go to the national championship game, because last year they did. You saw LSU and Florida in the national championship. So they tried.
Heartbreak. That was terrible, man. Two straight games.
Yeah,
it was the worst.
But see, they tried to do that just to ensure that the SEC does not have two national championship teams. What happened? Mississippi State comes out of nowhere and ends up in the Final Four, man. And they were like, they could have beaten. They actually did beat Oregon State in the first game. Mm-hmm. And so, like, that would have been so sweet to see Mississippi State just come out of nowhere and then play against Arkansas.
Ole Miss a few years before that was just coming out of nowhere. I think basically y'all are right. The SEC is built for playoff teams, like a legitimate playoff. They're built to go deep in a playoff system. I mean, defense wins championships, and there's a reason for that. So let's go on in our questions. I think that these next two can be taken together. Kevin Briggins asks, how do you guys see Dave Aranda attacking this Alabama offense? And then Garrett Shook asks, considering Alabama in recent years has struggled, I use that term loosely in this scenario, with mobile quarterbacks, should Orgeron call plays specifically to get Burrow out of the pocket on the first drive? Maybe a couple of quarterback run plays. If not, what's the best way LSU overcomes Bama's defense? So, two questions. How does LSU beat Alabama's offense, and how does LSU beat Alabama's defense? Firstly, I'd like to say that LSU has, without a doubt, the best secondary that Alabama is going to face before the SEC championship game, bar none. DBU, for sure. They've got a very, very good secondary. So the way that the Tigers have historically played mobile quarterbacks, I think specifically of Johnny Manziel and Lamar Jackson, is keep those guys in the pocket and force them to make the perfect throw. And if you look at the outcomes of those games, LSU is overwhelmingly dominant in those games. So how Dave Aranda attacks this Alabama offense, I see a lot of quarterback contain, a lot of spies, and a lot of deep coverage, a lot of man-to-man coverage, a lot of really forcing Tua to make the perfect throw, which, to be fair, to this point in the season, he has done excellently. So it'll be fun to see. Alabama's defense, I think, is overcome the same way that LSU played against Georgia. If LSU continues to hit those 10-yard curls, if they continue to hit those 10-yard ends, if they continue to convert on third down, I think that is the key. If they can convert on third down, that's how they do it. Now, does that involve a lot of quarterback run plays? To this point in the season, it has for LSU, because basically Joe Burrow has been playing like a dog, and he just comes in and says, you know what, forget it. I'm going to put the team on my back, and I'm going to carry us to a victory. I don't care what it takes. So I don't know that you draw up quarterback runs, but you definitely give Burrow the green light and say, look, if it's not there, take off with it. Make something happen. Make a play. You're a playmaker. So that's how I think LSU does that. And, of course, this is all given that LSU wins the turnover battle and wins the third down battle. But, Sam, what do you think?
I think I'm going to speak on this one from a coach's perspective. Not necessarily an Alabama fan perspective. For if it says considering Alabama in recent years has struggled as far as moving Joe Burrow, that's not who Joe Burrows is. He's not a guy that's going to run around the pocket and extend plays. He's not Johnny Manziel. He's not Deshaun Watson. He's not Tua. He's not any of those guys. I think it's a mistake to do that for him, because that's not who he is. I think that you better do what you're good at. You don't have to be the best in the country. You just got to be the best in the stadium on that night, And I think that you better figure out. We know what Joe Burrow's good at. He's good at being the dude of running that team, of saying, this is how we're going to do it. Either get behind me or get out of the way. One of the two. And to take that away from him, to make him and put him in positions that he's not comfortable in, is a mistake. Right. So I think if they do that, they're playing into Saban's hands and Alabama's hands. And if they do some quarterback run stuff, Alabama's defense has always been built from day one on stopping the run. I do not see LSU being able to run the ball on Alabama. I just don't. I might be wrong. I could be wrong. They're going to make Joe Burrow. They're going to treat Joe Burrows the way people treated Jalen Hurts last year.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to make Joe Burrow throw the football against press man coverage and beat them. Can they do it? If they can, they'll win the game. If to beat Alabama, you've got to convert 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 6s, 3rd and 5s. If you can do that, you have a chance to win the game.
Right.
That's how Clemson did it. That's how A&M did it. That's how South Carolina did it with Garcia. That's how Auburn did it with Cam Newton. You've got to win 3rd down with Alabama. If you don't win 3rd down, you're fixing to get the crap kicked out of you. That's the bottom line. As far as on the other side of the football, how do you see Dave Aranda? They've played a lot of really bad defenses, but I don't see a true weakness on the Alabama offensive team. Tua is playing at a level. Todd McShay said he's graded this year better than any quarterback he's ever graded, and that includes Peyton Manning. That includes Deshaun Watson. That includes a lot of really, really good players that were NFL quarterbacks. They've got four wide receivers, 2 of them that are lightning fast. They go 3 deep at running back. The weakest unit on their team has an All-American on it. The offensive line is the weakest part of Alabama's offense, and they've got an All-American on it. So I don't see a weakness. I think to beat Alabama, you're going to have to score points, at least 31. If you don't score 31, I just think, as good as LSU's defense is, I still think Alabama's going to score in the 28 to 35 range. And that's on the low end, unless they come out and commit a bunch of penalties and throw the ball around and put the ball on the ground and 2 or 3 interceptions.
Right.
Or LSU can run the ball. If LSU can run the ball and keep the ball away from Tua, that's another element to it.
Right.
So, I know that was kind of a long answer, but
yeah, I actually hate that I'm about to say this, but I agree with the Alabama fan. You have to win 3rd down. You absolutely have to. And Tua is very, very, very good at taking care of the ball, at not making the bad play. So if LSU is going to win this game, they have to force him to make the bad play. And he's not more likely to do that against any other team that he'll play this year. So I think that of all the teams that Alabama is going to play this year, if they win out and go to the national championship game, they will be more likely to win the national championship game than they are to win on Saturday. This is going to be the best defense that they play. This is going to be the best team that they play. And I can't wait to see how it falls out. Now, the next question that we have really is a question for JB. JB, do you think Kyle Warnock asks, do you think Kelly Bryant lands at Arkansas? And if not, where does he go?
I think he wants to go somewhere that he's going to play. He has the NFL on his mind. I think that Arkansas is the best fit. I mean, he was recruited by Chad Morris when he first came to Clemson. So I think he has a place where he can come and fit right into the system with the guy that recruited him. I honestly think he's coming. To be honest, I have no doubt that he's coming. But if he doesn't, I mean, I don't see him going to like an Auburn because he's got people to compete against coming up probably. But you know, Gus probably wants him. But he did go. Yeah, of course he does. He did go to Missouri and he did go to North Carolina. Honestly, he doesn't care about win-loss record, so I could see him going to North Carolina because he's going to be a big fish in a small pond. I mean, just to be honest.
Dude just wants to get paid.
Dude just wants to get paid, man.
Right.
So
I could see that happening. Well, that pretty much takes up our question segment, unless anybody else wants to hit the Kelly Bryant question.
I agree with JB.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty well-rounded answer. So let's just go ahead and get into next week's games. How do we see this playing out? What do we think is going to happen? JB, I am going to start with you, and we're just going to go game by game across the board. Each of us will give a pick, and then we'll move on to the next person, and they'll pick that game. and we'll do that until we hit the end. So,
Okay.
JB, we're going to start with Texas A&M traveling to Auburn. Who do you see winning that one?
Sorry, man. I'm picking Auburn this time. It's at Auburn. They always play better when they're at home. And he's fighting for his job. Jimbo has time. Gus is fighting for his job right now. So, yeah.
That's fair. James, what you got?
I got my boys. I haven't seen anything from Auburn to make me think that they'll beat Texas A&M. The only thing I've seen to make me think that Texas A&M is going to lose is Texas A&M. Now, especially after last week's game, it's tough to pick against my boys. If anything's going to make me do it, it's that. But I'm not this week.
I've got you, Rob. Who you got?
I got Texas A&M.
Okay. Very eloquent. Sam, who you got?
I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I've got Auburn. I do hate Auburn, by the way. I do hate Auburn. I think it's at Auburn. Auburn's better at home. They have a knack for when Gus Malzahn is fighting for his job to somehow find a way to win. Now, had A&M beaten Mississippi State on the road last week, I would pick A&M, but they let me down. That was the only game I missed last week.
Right. Well, basically, I agree. Also, yeah, it's kind of strange to me that Texas A&M was actually favored by the ESPN Football Power Index to beat LSU, and they go to Mississippi State and they end up really looking pretty bad in that game. Did anybody else have trouble telling the uniforms apart last week?
Mm-hmm.
I struggled with that because A&M and Mississippi State just have two similar colors. They need to figure that out somehow.
As an Aggie, I did struggle a little bit from time to time, but after about the first quarter and a half, I had it down.
Yeah. Well, at any rate, I have Auburn winning this one, and I think it's a very, very close game. I think that A&M is, as in years past, primarily an offensive team, and their offense is not up to snuff this year. So, with that, let's move on to the next game. This one, I think, will be the closest. ESPN actually doesn't even have a pick for it. South Carolina travels to Oxford, Mississippi to take on the Ole Miss Landshark Bear Rebels.
Be careful when you say bull shark. You might mess around and say something else. This is a
Landshark Rebel Bears.
Landshark Rebel Bears. Don't forget about the toddies.
That's right.
I'm going to say is it Ole Miss, right?
Yes, it is.
It's there in Oxford. Okay, yeah. I'm going to go with Ole Miss on this one. I think they've got a great offense, a great quarterback, and another Hawaiian quarterback, like Alabama has.
Right.
They're the best. So.
James, what you got for this one?
I think I had South Carolina for this one, and I think I'm sticking with my pick on that one.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Rob, what you got to say?
I've got South Carolina as well. I just don't think Ole Miss has it this year. They haven't shown me anything. The only thing they showed me this year was the very, very first week against Texas Tech, and I don't think Texas Tech is really all that strong.
Right. I'll agree with that sentiment. Samuel, who you got in this one?
I'm picking the biggest disappointment in the SEC this year, Carolina. I think they're the biggest disappointment this year in the SEC. Everybody's saying they're a 10-win season, they're going to compete for the East, and they've just laid an egg. But I'm picking them.
I agree with that. Biggest disappointment for me every year is that LSU isn't undefeated. South Carolina at Ole Miss. I've actually got Ole Miss in this one. I think that the offense has a lot of really bright spots on it. I think that they end up being too much at home for South Carolina because, like you say, South Carolina is a very disappointing team. And I'll just go ahead and admit it, the West is better than the East. So there you
That's
go.
True.
Picking Ole Miss to win this one. Now, the real fun game, the one that decides the winner of the East, the lesser half of the SEC, Georgia at Kentucky. And that game kicks off at 2:30 p.m. JB, who have you got in the battle for the East?
Well, let's just say, as the creator of the SEC Tavern, I'm declaring canon that is referred to as the SEC least. Okay. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. But no, I've got Georgia in this one, man. I feel like Kentucky is a pretty good defense and a really good running back, but if you isolate him and try to rely on the pass at Kentucky, and it's just not going to be pretty. And Georgia's defense is going to contain him, I believe. So I've got Kentucky in this one, and it's probably not going to be close. So.
Oh, gotcha. James, what you say?
I think you'll know where I'm going with this one. I'm definitely picking Georgia. I've been down on Kentucky all season, especially after they came to Kyle Field and lost a close one in overtime to Texas A&M. And seeing Texas A&M's performance last week, I think you can now see why I've been down on them. I definitely agree Texas A&M didn't play up to their potential last week. It was definitely a bad game for them. But yeah, I've been down on Kentucky, and I think Georgia's going to rip them to shreds this week.
In defense of Kentucky, I would like to point out that Clemson also came to Kyle Field and struggled, and Kentucky has a win over Mississippi State where Texas A&M doesn't. Rob, what you got to say about your Georgia Bulldogs?
Well, I'm a little more nervous than the two of them. I think I'm picking Georgia, but I think it's going to be closer than the two of them are saying. I think Kentucky's going to battle us. I think we're going to struggle in the first half to stop their run, and then we'll probably make adjustments. But I don't think the problem with their quarterback is that he's extremely athletic. He can run, but he's a loose cannon with the ball. I mean, in his arms, if we can force him to throw,
right.
And I think I didn't watch the game, but I assume that's what happened in the Missouri game because Missouri doesn't really have what you'd call a stellar defense. So they had to put.
What are you talking about? They're like the stalwarts of the SEC.
All right, let's get serious for a minute because that's a joke. I'm assuming that they just put a bunch of guys in the box and made them throw it. Because otherwise they wouldn't be able to stop their run game.
Right.
So I'm picking the Dogs, but closer than what literally everyone thinks.
Right. Samuel, what do you got to say about this one?
I've got Georgia in or out. This game will not be competitive, in my opinion. I think Georgia needed the LSU game, and they're going to play the rest of the year like their hair's on fire. I think that the LSU game kind of refocused them. That was not typical Georgia at LSU. Now, LSU had a lot to do with that. But I do think that Georgia wins, and it's not close. It might be close for a half, but this will be a rout, in my opinion. At least 2 touchdowns, at least.
That's fair. Okay. I would like to point out something that some fella on ESPN said. I don't remember who it was. But Georgia has struggled under Kirby Smart on the road in true road games against top 15 opponents. If we go back to last year, they go to Auburn and they lose in a blowout, just get creamed in a blowout. And they redeem themselves in the SEC championship game, but that game is not at Auburn. This year, they go to LSU and get really manhandled for 4 quarters. It was not close from the opening snap, and Kentucky is, whether James wants to admit it or not, a legitimate top 15 team, and going on the road is going to be very difficult. I think that Georgia does pull it out, but I'm agreeing with Rob. I think this is a very, very close game. I do think that Georgia ends up stacking the box and winning it that way, but I agree. I think this is going to be a very close one. Next, we have Missouri traveling to the Swamp to take on Florida. JB, who you got in that one?
I've got Florida, man. Missouri has let me down last week. I really thought they were going to do it, but I think in this situation, we're going to go with defense versus offense, man. I think Florida's going to take this one.
That's fair, James.
I think the Tigers are getting eaten for lunch, man. Them Gators are having some cat.
All right, Rob.
Well, before I make my pick, I need to show Gators how you clap. It's like this, not like this. With that said, I think that Mizzou's going to be some serious Gator bait. I don't think it's going to be close. Florida is absolutely going to be pissed after losing the cocktail party. That's a huge rivalry. Franks has got to be like just eating himself alive for making a couple of big mistakes. He made that one pick that was just like directly to our DB. I mean, so I think they're going to be mad. The game is in Missouri, right?
No, it's in the swamp.
Okay, even more so. It's not even going to be close. It's going to be ugly.
That's fair. Sam, do you agree?
I got Florida. It's not a competitive game in my opinion.
Yeah, I basically agree with that. I will say Felipe Franks has kind of been a disappointment this year. I've seen him play. He beat LSU and looked really good doing that. He looked really, really solid up until really that LSU game was the turning point. He threw a pick in that game or two, and then he ends up really going downhill from there. And I don't think that Florida can pass consistently, but their defense keeps them in it and wins this game for them. I think that Florida wins by 2 or 3 scores. We have Charlotte now. I think this is their first year in FBS football going to Tennessee. Who do you got, JB? As I got this one being competitive.
Tennessee's going to get a win here. Yeah, I mean, I've got to give it to Tennessee on this one. They did beat Auburn, so they got that going for them.
That's fair, but that counts for a lot less in the minds of some. James, who you got?
Yeah, I got Tennessee in this one. I think they finally got themselves a matchup that they can handle.
All right, Rob.
Yeah, I got Tennessee as well. I've seen Charlotte as a basketball school, but I don't know anything about the football program. I think Tennessee's going to pull it out.
That's fair, Sam.
Tennessee. I think Tennessee is headed in the right direction. Take out the Alabama game, and they have played better in every game. Should have beaten Carolina. Arguably, should have beaten Carolina. But I think Pruitt. Give him 2 or 3 years. Let him recruit some. Get his guys in there. And I'm not saying they're going to win the East. I'm not saying they're going to beat Alabama. But I am saying they're going to be more competent. Right now they're a joke. Just to be honest, Tennessee's a joke, which makes Auburn a joke.
Yeah, I like that line of reasoning. Let's go ahead and say Tennessee wins this one in a very close nail biter. I've got Tennessee by 1 score coming back in the end. This is going to be a more competitive game than it should be. Tennessee's obviously the more talented team, probably a little bit better coached, but I don't know. This is the kind of game that teams like Tennessee sleep on and end up getting very close to being embarrassed. So Louisiana Tech travels to Mississippi State in a game that looks to be closer than people want to give it credit for. Who you got, JB?
Hail State, man.
That's fair.
Yeah. Who are they playing again? I'm just looking at my picks.
They're playing the Bulldogs from Ruston, Louisiana Tech.
That's La Tech. Yeah, okay. Actually, La Tech's not that bad of a team, but I do think that.
No, they did beat North Texas, unlike some teams.
Hey, La Tech almost
That's
beat us a couple years ago. But anyway, let's just throw that out. Anyway, I got Mississippi State winning this. Yeah, I'm not even going to address that. But go ahead.
All right, James.
I got State in this one after the way they played against LSU. I don't think La Tech holds a candle.
Okay. Rob, what you got?
I got Mississippi State as well.
Okay. Samuel?
State.
Okay. Now, I am going to go ahead and explain why I've got this one so close. I am picking Mississippi State to win this one, but Louisiana Tech has played LSU closer at home than any other team. They've scored more points than any other team against LSU at home, and Louisiana Tech only has 2 losses on the season. One to UAB, which is kind of inexplicable, and the other to LSU. And yeah, they're a strong team as far as Power 5 teams go, or Group of 5 teams go. I think that Louisiana Tech is right there with UCF as far as talent level. Yeah, this is going to be a fun game. I think that's why it's a late kickoff. It's going to be at 6:30, and I'm looking forward to watching this one. I think it's going to be super entertaining. I think Louisiana Tech does lose, but it's closer than people will give it credit for. I got Mississippi State by 10 or 14. Okay? Now, the game that everybody is going to be watching this week, number 1, Alabama travels to number 3, LSU. JB, kick us off.
Man, I'm sorry, bro, but I've got Bama in this one. I feel like LSU's defense, in my opinion, is the best defense in the country. But their offense is just not there. They've got a decent running game, and Joe Burrow, like you said, has some grit, and I like that. I like that he has some dog in him. You know, that's my thing. But I feel like Alabama's offense is just going to be too much for them. I do feel like they may contain them a little bit. I mean, a lot more than any other team has. But I think Alabama's defense is not bad. I mean, they're just bad compared to Alabama's defense in the past, right? So it's not like you're not really comparing them to the rest of the college football world. Alabama is clearly heads and shoulders the best team in the country, and I don't see them losing. Although I think this will be closer than people think. I think LSU covers this weekend. What is it like? 2 touchdowns? Is that what it is?
14.5.
Yeah.
14.5? I think LSU's covering.
It opened at 14.5. When I looked last, it was at 13. James, who you got in this one?
I got the Tigers, the Bayou Bengals at home. I think it's going to be a nail-biter. I think it's going to be a hard-fought battle. But I think that LSU's defense is going to handle Alabama's offense. I mean, Texas A&M was the closest spread that they've had thus far this season, as far as I know. And as you guys have seen, we're not playing up to our potential. We're not playing all that well or as well as we should be. So I think if A&M can hold them to 3 scores, I think LSU can beat them.
Okay. Rob, who you got in this one?
So before I make my pick, I'm just going to throw out a couple little things. First of all, I found out an interesting stat about LSU's DBs. I knew that they were good, but I did not realize the stat was their QB rating, average QB rating, I believe it was an average, against QBs was 38.2, which is unbelievable. That just shows you how good their pass defense is. I also think it'll be interesting to see how Burrows does against Alabama's defense, because I think their weakest part of their defense is their secondary.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to see how they do against that. I think it's going to be a close game. This one's a tough one, man. I was originally sure of Alabama, and now I'm kind of back and forth. But without further ado, the headgear. Going with the Tide. In a close one.
Rob,
field goal.
All right, Samuel. Why do you think the Tide win this one?
I am picking Alabama. Shocker.
Right.
Nobody has been in more big games than Alabama in the past 8 to 10 years. There's no argument on that one. It's a fact. They've been in every college football playoff since they've opened it. They played in several BCS championships. The atmosphere will not intimidate, nor will it affect Alabama. Now, what could affect them? the noise level, having to go to hand signals, having to go to something else, that could affect Alabama. But the moment will not be too big for Tua. I mean, they threw him out there last year in the second half. The moment's not too big for this kid. He's going to play well. He may turn it over a couple of times trying to make a play he shouldn't make. Alabama scores 31 is what I think. And can LSU score 31? I don't think they can against Alabama. So I do have it in a close game. I'm going to say 31-23 in that area. LSU covers, I think. LSU is the best defense Alabama has seen. Are they the best in the country? I think it's hard to compare. It's hard to say they're the best at anything because the schedules everybody plays is so different. But they definitely passed the eye test. I think the key to the game is, can LSU pressure Tua with 4 players? If they can pressure Tua, just rushing 4, they've got a chance. But if they're having to blitz people, that opens up RPOs. That opens up, and we haven't even mentioned the best player on the field is not playing for LSU in the first half.
That's fair.
We haven't even mentioned it. Okay, and who does the RPO target? It targets the linebackers. It moves linebackers to get those guys in those windows, and that's probably what Tua does the best, reading those RPOs. And so you're taking an All-American off the field. I think the first half will tell the tale. If it's 31-14 Bama at the half, it's over. LSU's not built to come from behind, in my opinion. If it's 21-17, if it's 14-10, LSU's got a chance. Can they be Sonny Liston? Can they withstand the flurry of the Tide in the first half? If they can, then we can really see. Alabama hasn't been in a close game all year. LSU's played in several close games. LSU's played a great schedule. They played at Miami.
That was
is that a neutral field?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, neutral field. Either way, big game against a good opponent, and I think that early in the year it matters as far as not necessarily what they're ranked, but I think it matters who you play.
Right.
And I think Miami is not as good now as they were then. Auburn was better then than they are now. Obviously, a great win against Georgia. Right. They're battle tested. Is Alabama battle tested? No, they're not. Can LSU get the game into the fourth quarter? If it's close in the fourth quarter, then LSU's got a chance. If they don't get it in the fourth quarter, then obviously Alabama, it'll be a rout if they get out in front. But I'm picking Tide by 8.
That's fair. All right. Now, I want to go ahead and give y'all some statistics. Give me just a second. Let's you, Alabama.
So we got your not so fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine's not so fast. I actually do have LSU winning this game. I think that LSU matches up extremely well with Alabama. Man, like I say, this is going to be the best defense that Alabama plays. Certainly, without question, the best secondary that Alabama plays. And really, I think that the key to this game is going to be how LSU does with Devin White off of the field, right? Hashtag free Devin White. That was not a targeting. That was a ridiculous call. But at any rate, let's go to the tail of the tape. Tail of the tape. November 3rd, 2012, Alabama comes into Baton Rouge and wins by a grand total of 4 points. They go to Tuscaloosa the next year, and Alabama wins by 21. Alabama comes to Baton Rouge in 2014 and wins by a grand total of 7 in overtime. They go to Tuscaloosa the next year. Alabama wins by 14. Alabama comes to Baton Rouge in 2016, and they win by a grand total of 10-0 after a 0-0 score going into the fourth quarter. They go to Tuscaloosa the following year, last year, and they win by, again, 14. So to say that, I've seen a lot of people making the argument that LSU's home field advantage doesn't matter, this, that, and the other. Alabama has only won by 2 scores against LSU one time, and that was the last time that they came, and it was a close game, even with it being a 10-point football game. That was a really close game. So I will say that this is at least a 7-point swing in LSU's favor. This is really LSU's one shot. And to your point about them not being a team built to come back from behind, they were down 20 points against Auburn last year at home, and they came back and won that game. So I don't think that there's any chance that LSU is knocked out of this football game before halfway through the fourth quarter. I really think that this is a scarier game for Alabama than it is for LSU. Alabama, like you said, is not battle tested. They haven't played tough opponents. They haven't played anybody who's really challenged them at the point of attack. They haven't played anybody who can match their intensity at the line of scrimmage. They haven't played anybody. Really, the closest that they've gotten is Texas A&M at home, and we've seen Texas A&M is not the team that we thought they were to begin with. That's not to say Texas A&M is a bad team, but they are not that dominant line of scrimmage football team who's going to manhandle their opponents. And I really think that this is LSU's opportunity. This really is their chance to win the football game. And I also would like to point out the last time that these two teams met in the regular season, when they were both ranked in the top 3, LSU won 9-6 in overtime. So there's a lot going in LSU's favor here. I've got LSU winning by 7 or 10 points. So, yeah.
I will say this, though. Alabama has won the last 7.
That's true. That is true. And it's a fact that makes me cry myself to sleep often. Also, the last time that LSU and Alabama met, when they were both ranked in the top 3 in the regular season, they both had the 2 best defenses college football has ever seen.
Yep.
So this should be a fun matchup. I'm looking forward to it. I think LSU wins in a close one. And that is our picks for the evening. And I actually don't know anything about basketball, so I'm going to pass this off to JB. Will you lead us in the discussion on basketball?
All right, yeah, this is a kind of a surprise thing. We're going to segue into basketball because that starts this weekend. I know some people have had some some exhibition games, and I work in the car business. We've had some exhibition games, and but no, this weekend we start the actual real season. So I wanted to kind of give a preview with that looming ahead, especially me being an Arkansas fan and football. We're out of it. So I have nothing else to say about football at this point. We have 3 games left, and maybe something good will happen. Who knows? But yeah, I wanted to move on to basketball because it's starting, and I love basketball. I've actually seen Arkansas win a national championship in my lifetime in basketball. Haven't seen that in football, not since 1964, and I was not alive then. But in the 90s, Arkansas basketball was the king. But anyway, I wanted to go ahead and start this, and I brought Sam here because he brings a different kind of perspective, because he actually does this for a living. Like, he's a high school basketball coach, and when he watches a game, he doesn't watch it as a fan. He watches it thinking, oh man, that's a good play. I could do that this coming weekend. You know what I mean? Like, that's how he watches a game. And so he brings a completely different perspective. And with that, I'm just going to go over real quick the preseason SEC poll. That what they have us all ranked as. They've got Ole Miss coming in at number 14. Georgia is number 13. Texas A&M at 12. South Carolina at 11. Arkansas at 10. Missouri at 9. Vanderbilt 8. Number 7 is Alabama, taking a step up apparently after Colin Sexton leaves. Number 6 is LSU. Number 5 is Florida, and number 4 is Mississippi State. Number 3 is Auburn. Number 2 is Tennessee, And of course, they're going to give it to them because until somebody knocks them out, they're going to keep doing it. Kentucky is number one. So, Sam, what do you have to say about that?
I'm just going to give you my top 14, and I've got a kind of a snippet on each one of our teams. 14, I got Ole Miss. They were the worst team last year in the SEC. It's not going to change. I don't care who the coach is. They're terrible. 13, Missouri. They've got one really good player, and the rest of them are not. So I've got Missouri at 13. 12, South Carolina. To me, South Carolina is always hard to pick because of their coach. He's so hard. He's so hard-nosed. They went to the Final Four with one real basketball player like 2 years ago. One real player is all they had, and he was a stud. But he goes to the NBA, and he's forgotten about. So he was, average as far as that goes. Because I've got them at 12. They've got one really good player, Chris Silva. He needs help. 11, I've got Georgia. Tom Crean takes over that program that was kind of stuck in neutral. I don't think Mark Fox did a bad job. He really reminds me of Mark Richt, and they were good at one point and kind of just stalled out. Tom Crean is a very good basketball coach, a very good coach. He wasn't a good fit in Indiana. He was a great fit at Marquette. I think it was Marquette where he was. He was a great fit there, and I think they're about a year away. Let him have a recruiting class, and they will be a top 25 team next year. I think. I really respect what he does. I've got A&M at 10. Losing Tyler Davis and Robert Williams is too much to handle for them. They're great. Their best offense last year was a missed shot. 9, I've got Vandy. Vandy's another wild card for me. They've got two top 15 recruits, ESPN 150 recruits. So they have a chance to kind of make a run, and they will always play well at home because of how crazy their gym is. They've got the benches on the end. It's just nuts to me how they have that set up. I've got Florida at 8. Losing Chris Chioza, that's a huge loss for them. But they are also a wild card. I think they can get hot. I've got Bama at 7. Life without Sexton will not be fun. He was the best player, in my opinion, in the SEC last year. And obviously, I'm a Bama fan. Of course he was. But I do expect John Petty to have a big year. John Petty is a guy that I saw play. He's from Huntsville. He can flat out shoot it. And I expect him to have a really, really big season. I've got State at 6. Ben Howland is one of the better coaches in our league. At 5, I've got Arkansas. I wanted to pick Daniel Gafford to be Player of the Year, preseason Player of the Year. I didn't, but I think he will have a big, big year. And I think that Mike Anderson is the second best coach in our league. I think that Calipari, you can't argue with what he's done. He's done something similar, not on the same level to what Saban's done, but he's really created an SEC type dynasty. Not on the national level, but every year if you're going to win the SEC, you got to beat Kentucky, and it wasn't that way after Rick Pitino and Tubby Smith. In that gap, they were just middle of the road. And then in comes Calipari. Does he cheat? Probably. He probably does. He cheated. He's cheated everywhere he's been, but he just ain't got caught yet. Name another coach to me that has accomplished more than Mike Anderson. I don't think you can.
Nick Saban.
Well, basketball. Basketball.
All right. JB, I did not rank mine, but I'll just give a little overview. So, for those that don't know, obviously I am a Georgia. I mean, most of you know I'm a Georgia fan by now, but as I have, they're always number one. But as I have family from Kentucky, I grew up a secondary Kentucky basketball fan. So JB resents me for that, but Big Blue Nation. To Georgia, so I think it's going to be rough this year. I think there's some talent growing there, but I think with Tom Crean being in his first year, I think it's going to be a little tough just getting used to it. We lost a huge recruit that was coming in. Well, he was actually originally classified for next year, but he reclassified, decommitted, and reclassified for this year for Kentucky after we fired our coach, Mark Fox. And so I think it's going to be a tough year. I don't know. I don't really know where I'd rank them yet because I haven't really seen much from them under the new coach. They did have a good exhibition game today, but it was against West Georgia. So, I mean, they put up 98, shot 50% from the field, and I think we're 11 for 26 from three. So they really shot well. Had several blocks. They played really well, but I mean, it's West Georgia, so it's hard to really tell. I think Kentucky is always an interesting. You never know how their freshmen are going to pan out. They do have a couple that are from the team last year that'll lead the team. Tennessee, as much as it pains me to say it, I honestly think they are going to be right there at the top. I have not said this in God knows how long, but I finally respect a coach at the University of Tennessee.
Duke's flat coach.
Great coach, and from all I can see, an outstanding, respectful dude. Like, he's just – I can't – as much as I want to not like him because he's at Tennessee, I just can't. He's a great coach.
Yeah.
To your point about Bama, I mean, yeah, who they lost, but they lost Sexton, but they had if I'm not mistaken, a top 5 recruiting class. They were right there. They had a really good recruiting class this year. That coach is doing something special over there in recruiting. I'm wondering if Nick Saban is recruiting for basketball too, but
but you got to coach them once you get them. You got to coach them once you get them.
It's true, but he's a good coach. So I think Florida, after their new coach, I thought they were going to go downhill, but they kept chugging along. I think they're going to do well. The crazy thing is the SEC in recruiting this year in basketball was kind of similar to football. I mean, we really had some big recruiting classes across the board in basketball, which never happens. And so I'm just interested to see how this year plays out. I can't. It'd be hard for me to rank them right now. I'm a basketball player, so I approach it a little bit different than a coach. Sometimes I have the mind of a coach, but I've never actually been a coach. So our mindsets are slightly different from player to coach. But that's my 2 cents.
No, yeah, I mean that's fair. I think.
JB, let me finish my top 5.
Go ahead, bro.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I cut you off.
Are you good, dude? I get long-winded, so you just got to tell me to shut up. 4, I got LSU. They had a top 5 recruiting class.
Woo, okay.
Yeah, real. I've got them also having the Player of the Year, Tremont Waters. I think he'll be Player of the Year in the league. I've got 3. I've got Tennessee. They returned Admiral Schofield and Grant Williams. They were all SEC last year. They'll be all SEC again, and they will flat out guard your tail. They're the best defensive team in our league. 2, I've got Auburn. They have the best backcourt in the SEC coming back, and then they add back Austin Wiley, who is a 6'11" post player, absolute stud. And I've got Kentucky 1 because they're Kentucky. Until you beat them, they hate us because they ain't us. So
that's true.
Rookie of the Year, I've got Kyra Lewis at Alabama. Kid from Hazel Green. Player of the Year, I've got Tremont Waters, and Coach of the Year, I got Ben Howland at Mississippi State. So,
Tremont Waters, Ashton, you'd be glad to hear that, I guess.
I'm going to be completely honest, man. I am lost.
You know who Tremont Waters is?
No, I know we had that one really good kid named Ben.
Yeah. Plays for the Sixers now, right?
Who was
He's on my.
who was
Hey,
really good, and he was a ball hog, and that's all I remember.
At least LSU is the best team in Louisiana again.
Yeah,
Dang
that
right.
kid named Ben who's like killing it in the NBA. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
he's on my fantasy team, man.
That's I didn't even know there was a fantasy basketball.
There is, man.
there's
Ben
fantasy like,
But hey,
there's probably
go
fantasy
Tigers.
golf.
I'll give you my rankings for this year's basketball. Number 1, LSU.
I knew that was
course.
coming.
Kentucky. Number 3, everybody else can go.
Does it matter?
Number
Who's
14,
2?
Alabama. Forget Alabama.
You went from 1 to 3. Who's 2?
I went from 1 to 2, who is Kentucky.
You said 3 Kentucky.
Then I meant to say 2 Kentucky, and then 3 through 13 is everybody else, and then 14 is Alabama.
Roll Tide.
All right then.
All right. Anyway,
They can roll around in the bottom of the barrel there.
Real quick to his point about Tennessee, I cannot stand Grant Williams.
I hear you, dude. I hear you.
That dude.
But the dude's a baller, though.
See, he's good, but I think he is one of the most overrated players. And the reason I say that, I'm not taking away from his talent, but that dude gets away with a lot from the refs.
No doubt.
That's true.
No doubt.
Offensive foul galore. That dude knocks people over and gets away with it, and it drives me crazy. Now, Admiral Schofield, I mean, he's
baller.
Admiral Schofield is a baller, man. For
he
real,
is a
that is a legit name too. Admiral Schofield. That's the name right there.
I mean, that's great. All right, go ahead, JB. I just had to say that.
No, you're good. Anyway, what I was gonna say, my thing with, and I'm not gonna go like 1 to 14 here. I'm gonna say this: Arkansas was picked at number 10. But let me give you a little bit of. You got them at 5. Let me give you a few stats about Arkansas, about Mike Anderson at Arkansas. I'm going to throw away his first 2 years because he inherited John Pelfrey's crap.
He's an assistant at Bama, by the way.
Pelfrey may be a good coach one of these days, but he was not ready to be a head coach in the SEC when he took over at Arkansas.
I agree.
And look, we'll throw it out there. Stan Heath was not a good coach either.
I agree.
But anyway, so he inherited some crap. So the first 2 years gone. We'll just go the last 5 years of Mike Anderson at Arkansas. 2013, they were picked 8th, finished 5th. 2014, they were picked 3rd, they finished 2nd. 2015, they were picked 11th and finished 9th. 2016, they were picked 5th and finished 3rd. 2017, they were picked 6th and finished 3rd again. Point being, for the last 5 years, Mike Anderson has outperformed every single preseason poll that came out. We're picked 10th. No, that ain't happening. Sorry, guys. and Sam knows it. He picked him as 5th, right? You said 5th?
I had him at 5.
You had him higher than I said. I said 6 or 7. And I'm giving Daniel Gafford. Huh?
I think Daniel Gafford's he's a lottery pick, I think. He's a top 10 pick in the NBA draft.
Yeah, he was a borderline lottery pick last year. There were just so many big men last year that he just decided to stay. But I think that DG is he's the guy this year who could have went to the NBA last year, and he's just playing to build up his stock in the NBA. And I think he's going to average about 20 points, maybe more a game. And he's surrounded by a lot of freshmen and grad transfers, or not grad, JUCO transfers. But I think I'm going to throw this out there. They're due for something.
You think they'll press any this year?
I hope so, man. He's Mike Anderson. He's Mike Anderson. He's got to press.
That was maybe.
I gotta throw this out there as a disgruntled Arkansas fan. Okay, so the Arkansas Razorbacks have not been in the Sweet 16 since 1996. Okay, Do you know how many SEC schools have been in the Sweet 16 since '96?
Alabama has.
Kentucky has.
Take a wild guess. How many of them?
Let's go 13.
All of them. Yeah, you're right. 13. All SEC schools have been in the Sweet 16. Arkansas has not.
You're not helping your Mike Anderson case, though.
I'm not helping my Mike Anderson, but he inherited some crap, is what I'm saying.
What year is this?
This is 7.
Okay.
Okay. What I'm saying is we are due to enter in the Sweet 16. It's not going to happen this year. I don't think it's going to happen. But I'm telling you about Mike Anderson. If it doesn't happen by the end of next year, he's gone. He's gone. I'm sorry. I believe he is the second best coach in the SEC.
I agree.
But I think they have the history at Arkansas that they're going to move on and find somebody else to take over. But I don't think it's going to happen because I think we're going to the Sweet 16 next year. But this year, everyone thinks we're lucky to be in the NIT. I think we're going to go to the tournament. And
listen, I think the SEC is an 18 league. I think we'll get 8 teams in the tournament this year. I really do. There's 8 quality. What the SEC has really done, they've really stepped up by going out and finding guys who can coach. Alabama dropped Anthony Grant, and they got Avery Johnson. Auburn gets Bruce Pearl. Tennessee gets Rick Barnes. Mississippi State gets Ben Howland. There's some dudes that can flat coach in the league, and they can flat recruit in the league. John Calipari is another one. Tom Crean's another one. There's some really good coaches in our league. I
agree. Absolutely. We've stepped up, and I think Greg Sankey kind of started that.
I agree.
Yeah, he kind of came in and said, look, we've got to get basketball working, and we've hired some great coaches.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl is a joke of a human being, but he's a good coach.
No doubt he is.
He's a great coach, man.
I said he was a good coach. I just said he's a joke of a human being.
Yeah.
He's classless. He's a jerk.
That and they're paying players, but that's another point for a different time. Hey, let's
they're all paying players. He has the best game.
Yeah, look at Louisville. Anyway, let's move on with some dark horse teams from the SEC that will just come out of nowhere that were not preseason good teams. Sam, we'll start with you.
I've got Vandy, top 15 recruiting class, and I've got LSU, top 5 recruiting class, and I've got Florida. They lost Chris Chiozza, but they've got a lot of really good players. They can shoot the 3, and the way basketball has progressed, if you can shoot the 3, you got a chance. I mean, the NBA, look at the NBA itself. The best team in the NBA has built itself on the 3. You got the Golden State Warriors. You got Steph Curry, and you got Klay Thompson, and the list will just keep on. You got Kevin Durant. They all can shoot the 3. It's about spacing, and it's about ball movement, and it's about can you shoot the 3, and the Gators can shoot the 3. So I think, and Vandy can shoot the 3, and LSU can shoot the 3. So I think that they got a chance to be okay.
Go Tigers.
What do you think, Rob?
I agree.
Dark horses.
I think Florida for sure. I mean, they're they lost Chiozza, but I don't think you can count them out. They've got a good coach. They still got some talented players. I don't even know that I would call them a dark horse. I think they're better than probably they're projected right now. But to his point, yeah, I do agree. And I'd say Vanderbilt too. I in basketball, I can never count Vanderbilt out. They can be in the middle to the lower part of the league or the conference for half the SEC schedule, and then just blow teams away because they get hot. They're a team that you can never count out, regardless of how down they are.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, let's move on to let's go with the top 5 NCAA and to your point, I think Vandy is a dark horse to step up, and LSU may step out from nowhere. I don't see Arkansas doing it as much as I love them. But I do think Daniel Gafford is a force to be reckoned with. And I'll move on to more I got to say about Arkansas later. But let's go with Sam again on the 5 NCAA teams, the top 5 for you.
5, I got Auburn. I've got Auburn at 5, as much as that pains me. I think Austin Wiley coming back is a huge, huge, huge. Last year, you didn't have to guard Auburn on the inside. This year, he's a force. I've got Villanova at 4. I've got Kentucky at 3, Kansas at 2, and I've got Duke at 1. Duke's recruiting class really is unprecedented, really. I think they'll have the National Rookie of the Year in Zion Williamson, and then I think they'll also have the National Player of the Year in R.J. Barnett. So I think Duke will. I do think Duke will cut down the nets this year.
Nice.
Well, he's got Duke being the Vandals.
Yeah. So you're just talking about who we think will finish top 5? Is it?
Sure. Yeah, top 5 for the whole NCAA.
I mean, in the regular season, I mean, Duke is definitely going to be on at the top of the list. I think Kansas will be up there too. Kansas had another great recruiting year.
Yeah.
I think Kentucky will compete. I don't know how well, because I'm always kind of in the dark about my own team, just because it's almost like starting a new team every year. For the most part, it is, and so it's hard to really judge until you start watching them. But I mean, they'll definitely compete for the SEC and probably at least in the NCAA for a big portion of it. I'd probably put Villanova at 4, so I'd probably say Duke 1, Kansas 2, Kentucky 3, Villanova 4. I don't really know who I'd put as my 5 right now.
LSU.
Not LSU. I don't know that I really have a 5 at the moment. I'm gonna have to see how things play out to start the season. I think the Classic coming up on Tuesday is going to be a good barometer for the season with Kentucky and Duke. It's going to be a really good one. So we'll see how that pans out.
It's almost a high school game.
Yeah, with the players, yeah. When you said that, it threw me off from it, and then I realized what you were saying. Yeah.
All right, well, let's I don't really have much to add, because I think that Kansas and Kentucky and Duke are definitely going to be there. You can't count them out. I'm going to present myself. I can't discount. Sam mentioned Auburn. They have got an excellent backcourt coming back. You've got a few guys, Bryce Brown, Jared Harper coming back. Their second team All SEC. And, like you said, they got a big man coming in that's just going to, make a more complete team. I feel like we were a complete team last year, but the fact is we lacked defense, because we had a couple of JUCO guys that were leading the way that were just trying to be superstars on their offensive side of the ball. But it happens.
And the thing about Auburn's big guy is he played 2 years ago in the league. It's not like this is a new kid. He played as a freshman, was ineligible as a sophomore, and now he's back. So he's not only, this isn't a guy who played somewhere else, and we might think he's good. He was an all SEC player as a freshman. He made a freshman all SEC as a freshman. He's a force. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. One more thing I want to go to is who do you think is going to be the newcomer of the year or somebody that the all SEC teams are not looking at that could just make a splash in the league? I'll go with you, Sam.
I think the most important player in the conference is Reed Travis at Kentucky. He's a transfer from Stanford. He was an all Pac-12. He was an all Pac-12 player, and I think he's a sophomore. I think, or maybe he's a junior. He's the most important player to his team because without him, Kentucky's all freshmen again. And the years Kentucky has won it, they've had one or two older guys to kind of right the ship when things go wrong for them. And so that's why I think he's if Kentucky's going to be Kentucky and go to the Final Four and have a chance to win it, he's got to be that guy that's the veteran there that says this is how we do things, this is how you practice, this is how you go to class, this is how you watch film. He's got to be the guy that gives them leadership if they're going to have a chance to be good. And then I've got Kyra Lewis at Bama. He's a guy that reclassified. He's supposed to be a high school senior this year, and he reclassified and graduated early. And then I've got at Mizzou, I got the Porter kid. The Porter kid's he made second team preseason, but I think he's a lot. He can be a lottery pick. He's that good. Just they don't have anybody else to go with him. So.
Well, as
what do you
the
think?
Ben kid proved at LSU, one person is not a team make.
True that.
Well, so I would agree with your assessment about Travis coming to Kentucky, but I honestly think Quade Green is more, being a sophomore, having that second year kind of. He's been with the team from last year. He knows the Calipari system. I think he's going to be the leader on that team, along with PJ Washington.
Yeah. Who could have been a lottery pick last year?
Yeah. And then it's going to be crazy because Emmanuel Quickly is going to be an interesting addition to Quade Green, but I would say that. And then as far as Missouri, I agree with Porter. I think that's
dude stud. He's stud.
It's like he can
flat go.
Yeah, that's a talented player that I think is going to make a big splash. Didn't quite get the splash last year for obvious reasons, but I think this year he's going to explode.
Gotcha.
All right.
Well, I'm just gonna go with Arkansas because that's what I know, man.
Josh, you're such a homer, dude.
I'm a straight homer, man. The thing is, I can't add to what you guys have said. I mean, I can't just bring somebody else into the picture.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna throw these out there, newcomers at Arkansas, because everybody at Arkansas besides Daniel Gafford is a newcomer.
Yeah.
So
we saw him play last year.
Right, exactly. Me and Sam went to a game, Arkansas and Alabama, which we won. But Jalen Harris is a JUCO transfer that is a distributor that we have not had for a long time. He's a point guard that we really need. Keyshawn Embry is a guard that is actually on the top 10 players that will outperform their preseason ranking. That is an official stat that I found. Keyshawn Embry. Remember that name. And then the only other guy that I would watch out for at Arkansas is Isaiah Joe. He's the only straight-up traditional shooter that we have, and the guy can just get the ball off at any time. So I'm a little bit optimistic about this season, but I don't think we're going to be, the Arkansas that we've seen in recent years. So anyway, I think we're done here. We've unless anybody else has anything to add.
I do. I always have things to add. Number one, go Tigers. Number two, Sam, we've asked all of our guests to this point, have you baptized your babies?
I am not Catholic, no.
Amen. Amen and amen. That is
I'm a Southern Baptist. So.
Amen. That means you're correct on the covenants, and we don't have to do anything to convert you this evening. Praise the Lord.
I do want to say thank you for letting me come on. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. I watch you guys every week. I enjoy following the group. It's a lot of fun.
Well, we
appreciate it.
It's cool to know that we have at least one fan. I don't know that there's anybody else out there, but we have one lonely fan. If anybody wants to join him, please come watch our show, join our group. And Sam, it's been a pleasure talking to you. JB, will you take us to a close?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I'm glad we could bring basketball into the mix. We're going to continue to talk about basketball in the weeks to come because the season is starting now. We may end up doing 2 shows. I don't know. We'll kind of hash that out. But I've enjoyed it, and we would love your feedback. I love you guys that have joined us and have given us the questions. Continue to do that and tell us what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right, and let us know what you think about the basketball segment, what you think about this year, and we'll be glad to take your questions, going forward. But just remember, brothers, to let your light shine before men so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. We'll see you in the tavern.